Hello, this is cjhoyle. Today is Saturday the 14th of November 2020, and I'm standing here in front of Toronto's Union Station. This here is the intersection of University Avenue and Front Street, which is the southern terminus of University Avenue. You can see here I've got my Linear Limo Recumbent Bike, and on the front of it I have my action camera mounted. And in this video I'm going to be riding my bike north along University Avenue, which now has bike lanes. Alright, so here I start my way heading north. Now I mentioned bike lanes, but this very first section here unfortunately does not have bike lanes. The bike lanes don't start until Richmond or Adelaide, I think. The first intersection here is Wellington Street. And so I filmed the video of University Avenue starting from exactly the same point and riding north, and I posted that video almost an entire year ago. It was last December, I believe. And usually I don't typically revisit roads that I've already ridden before in these videos, but the reason I'm making the exception for this one is because those bike lanes were installed, and they really, in a way, kind of came out of nowhere. They were installed as part of Toronto's active TO pandemic relief plan, giving people, alternate forms of safer transportation for getting places when people weren't, rightly so, keen on riding on the TTC, public transit, in other words. And also to give people places to ride for recreation because, gyms were closed as well. But the reason I say they kind of came out of nowhere was because University Avenue was not really a road that was really ever seriously being considered for bike infrastructure. So they're nice to have, but they're just not really exactly where I had sort of envisioned that they would come. But I ride on them all the time. They're a great route from getting from where I live, up in the annex area of Toronto, near the northern terminus of University Avenue, getting down to the waterfront, as well as getting down to Union Station and other destinations downtown. So here's the bike lane. You can see it's very wide. It's I think one of the widest bike lanes in the city, which is really nice because it allows cyclists of different abilities and skill levels that ride at different speeds to be able to pass each other. I think the reason it's so wide is because basically what they did was they just took the outer two curb lanes of this road that had just kind of three regular vehicle lanes in either direction, and they transformed one of those into a bike lane. So it's pretty much built to the spec that a vehicle car lane would be built. So I should mention, underneath of University Avenue there's a subway that runs, and we've already gone past a number of the stations that belong to that. Just saw in the bike lane there was some feces. When I was riding down University Avenue before starting to record this video, I saw heading north along right where I am right now, I saw some Toronto Police Service police officers who were riding two horses along in the bike lane here, and I suspect that might be the source of the things that I just saw behind me. Well, there's some kind of parade coming down the sidewalk, it looks like, up ahead here. This is Dundas Street we're about to cross, which is one of the intersections that has a subway station underneath of it. This one's called St. Patrick. There's also a subway line that runs underneath of Yonge, and the subway stations over there are named after the streets that intersect them. So if you went a couple of blocks, maybe a kilometer or so, if I turned right here and went east, then we would go past Dundas station. Alright, it looks like we got a green light, but I guess there's still got the intersection blocked for this interesting parade. I live pretty close to the Chinese consulate, the consulate for the Republic of China, and I saw some of this group driving around the neighborhood with these signs on their roof for the same cause. Alright, well, I waited around for a while, but there's no sign of this parade ever ending, so I'm just gonna walk my bike across when there's a bit of a gap. Alright, so on with the regularly scheduled program. So yeah, enjoying these bike lanes on University Avenue. Up straight ahead you can see a building that's sort of, you know, directly in line with the road. That's the Ontario Legislature, where the Ontario provincial government meets. Just crossing Elm Street here, which is an intersection where they've kind of treated it a little bit more like a protected intersection, where they have these islands that have those bollards in them. Protected intersections are not something that's been built yet in Toronto, at least not more than what we just saw back there. Another one right here at Gerrard. And I should mention, around where I'm riding right now are a lot of hospitals. Over to the left, we just sort of went past Mount Sinai, and a little bit back there was also Sick Kids Hospital. There's about 4 or 5 of them in this area right here. This area is called Hospital Row, and I believe one of the reasons why University Avenue was one of the streets that the city decided to prioritize putting in these pandemic relief bike lanes was because there's so many frontline workers that work out of, you know, commute to those hospitals, and this is a great opportunity to give them a safe way to be able to bike to work, because University Avenue, can be a pretty busy road, or, you know, it was pre-pandemic. Vehicles move pretty fast, and there's quite a large volume of them. So we're just about to cross College Street now, and like I mentioned, straight ahead is Queen's Park, you know, where the Ontario Legislature is, and I'm going to be kind of curving over to the right to go around it, because this is actually the northern terminus of University Avenue. Beyond here, this section is actually called Queen's Park, and Queen's Park is where University Avenue splits on either side of that building. So the northbound side where I am is going over here to the east of the building, and the southbound is over on the west. Back there on my right, there was a sort of a sign on one of those telephone poles, and it said temporary bike lane. And that's something that I wanted to make sure to mention, that this bike lane here on University Avenue, it was installed as a pandemic relief measure, and it was installed here on a temporary basis. So by doing that, it meant that I guess the city had to jump through fewer hoops to be able to get it built. But for the cycling community, of course, the hope is that after the duration of the pandemic, having this bike lane here, we do hope that, you know, it will show a high amount of ridership, showing that it was a good idea to build, and hopefully they'll consider keeping it here as a permanent installation. Just crossing Wellesley Street now, and over on my left is still Queen's Park. We've gone past the legislature, but behind the legislature there's this big park area called Queen's Park. And I came here a few weeks ago. I was doing a tree tour, a self-guided tour of the different trees that are planted there in the park. And there's probably 50 or 60 different species of trees in that park over there, and it's really interesting finding them on the map and you know, being able to compare and contrast. Like, for example, like oak trees, there is at least 4 different types of oak trees in there: the northern red oak, the white oak, the bur oak, the English oak. And there's ways of being able to tell them apart, and in fact they're quite different if you actually look at them really closely. So I really found that interesting. It was a good fall activity. If you're interested in that, I'll put a link in the description below for more details on doing that. It's just a website that you go to with a map, and it's free, of course, to do that. So now I've come around the corner, and I've basically, the two sides of University Avenue, or Queen's Park, have now rejoined. And we're almost at the end here. I'm just going past Museum subway station. That subway station is named after the museums that are around here, most notably the one on the left, which is called the Royal Ontario Museum, or the ROM. But anyways, a couple ahead, we'll be approaching Bloor Street, which is the northern terminus of University Avenue. But anyways, I hope you've enjoyed joining me on this narrated tour of University Avenue. If you haven't already watched it, you might want to go back and see the version of this video that I filmed before there were bike lanes to be able to compare and contrast them. Well, anyway, that concludes my tour of University Avenue on a bicycle. If you watched all the way to the end of this video, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.